4, 3. Good morning and welcome to the Tarat podcast. Thank you for joining us. To our audience from around the world, thank you for joining us this morning. We are very happy to once again have Anders Stridh joining us today from the Swedish tax agency. He is a strategist there and author of the book From Feared Tax Collector to Popular Service Agency. We're providing a link in the bottom of our YouTube channel so that you can acquire a copy for yourself. It's an interesting read. We highly recommend it. And just a warm welcome again to you, Anders. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you, Annette. It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to be part of this podcast last time, and I really look forward to today's session.
We had such, sorry, please.
No, I just, please, Annette.
Okay, sorry. We had such incredible interest in your previous conversation that we had to invite you back for a Q&A session today, this morning, to follow up on the May 11th presentation that Anders did. If in case you missed it, you're welcome to join us in the Tarat YouTube channel where the video is there for you to watch at your own ease. Today, hosting today's event, we have Des Shilabuka. We call him Des for short, affectionately. He is a tax advisor and formerly with the Kenya Revenue Authority. He's skilled in tax policy and advisory, business analysis and development finance, international certified tax assessor. He's also Tarat trained and a Tarat certified assessor. Thank you so much, Des, for joining us this morning, and welcome to the Tarat podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Annette. I'm very glad to be part of this initiative, and we are ready to go. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Fantastic. A warm welcome to you both. So I think I've said enough this morning. I'll hand over the floor to you, Des and Anders, and we'll touch back with our audience a little later. Please feel free to join us and ask us questions on the live YouTube chat or on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to pass them along to Des so that he can then pose the questions to Anders. So without further ado, please, thank you very much.
Okay, let's take it away, Des. Let's do it.
So viewers, this is gonna be just a conversation, kind of interaction between me and Anders. And what we're gonna do is, like, you will listen and you post your questions on the chat. So Anders, welcome again. We're glad to have you in the house. As you've heard, Anders is the author with Leonard. From Feared Tax Collector to Popular Service Agency. And I think it resonates very well with most of the tax community around the world. Maybe just to kick us off, when I talk about the STA, you just mean, we mean the Swedish tax agency. So, the first thing that maybe I'll just want Leonard to just maybe Anders to just start us off with is just to recap in terms of what he talked last time, but just in very few words, it is understood that the STA took a long journey to achieve the milestone it has, given the current environment. How long did it take? How long can it take? If we relate to now Africa, in your own view, how long can it take a tax administration in Africa to reach the level of STA that it currently now is having? And then like now following up to that is, like, maybe you can just tell us something to do with the how the STA transformed itself from an authority now to an agency. What led to this? Maybe just
thank you, Des. I'll try my best, and those who wanted to dig deeper in this subject can look at the earlier episode of the pod that we did, or perhaps look in the book if you're interested. But to be short, I could say that going back in time, we had a strategy where we wanted to, like, scare people into to compliance. So we saw the taxpayers more as opponent And I think that they saw us as opponents as well. So it's very, very frosty relationship. And a good result, we thought that if we do as many corrections as possible, that is a good result. And if we could raise money after like audit activities, we also saw that as a good result. But then we shifted our strategic view on really what is a good result towards getting it right from the start instead. So instead of looking for risks of fault and risks of non-compliance, we looked at the other side of the coin. We wanted to know what motivates people, what really, benefits compliance, what contributes to compliance. And we realized that the relationship between us and the taxpayers are very crucial in order to get it going. And also that trust is very important. And trust is something that we realized that we have to earn in everything we do. So we changed our strategy towards more a trust-based approach, trying to strengthen the willingness to comply. And what we have done is to listen to taxpayers. So that has been crucial, to listen and understand what is taxpayers' situation like, being a small business, being a taxpayer. And we have brought in this knowledge into the organization and used this as a base for our strategy. So, and you said how long time it has been taking. Usually we go back to the 1970s when we describe our journey. But at the time we did this transformation, I would say the most lion part happened between the beginning of year 2000 and 2012, something like that. But we didn't know during the transformation how long time it would take. And given the conditions in Africa that you mentioned here, how long can similar transformation take in Africa? I would say that I worked a little bit with African tax administration, that you have good conditions for doing a change. And I think that it's possible to even do it like sort of faster, but it takes time. So it's not something that you do in a few months and then it's done. It takes years, and you have to have the approach for the whole of the organization. So it's not that you can just take parts of the organization or saying these fancy words and something would happen. So you have to have like everyone on board. But I see possibilities. I see good initiatives in Africa, and I see possibilities when it comes to like economic growth and so on, that the tax administrations can be like more co-players in the economy than opponents, which I think is good possibilities in the African context.
Thank you. Now that you mentioned something to do with like, given the conditions that are in Africa that are very favorable, this journey can take even a shorter period, factoring in the issues to do with even technical assistance, knowledge sharing. But now, just related to that, in your transformational journey, there is the fear factor. The fear factor, as you say, from fear to respect. The fear factor, as it can really resonate very well with the most current tax administrations, whereby even the citizenry are just even afraid. They are afraid to even go into that building. Sometimes they think it's a police station. You understand what I mean?
Yes,
so,
yes, I understand.
Yeah, in your own perspective, how did the STA now demystify this fear factor to the present respect? You know that
yes.
is now how, as you put it in your book. How did you manage this?
Yes, I would say that when we started to listen to taxpayers, understand their situation, what they said was that you have to be helpful. If you can help me, assist me, show me how to do it right, I'm more than willing to try to do this. But if you treat me in a way that I feel judged beforehand, you don't give me the conditions, you're arrogant, accusive, and so on, then it won't work. So when we brought in this knowledge in the organization, that then we realize that there are other ways to achieve compliance than to like foster taxpayers, scare them into compliance. If we can carry out what we do for the taxpayers instead of against them, that works better. So let me give you an example when it comes to enforcement. In the past, we said that you should be aware that if you not, declare all your taxes, we will come after you, and you will end up with some fines and stuff. And people, the motivation for compliance is just that you're afraid, as you said, you're afraid of the agency, so you're scared. But if we change that into the way that we, that's you're welcome to contact us, so we can, aid you and assist you to do it right. And we will make sure that others, you won't face unfair competition because of others are non-compliant. And, if you run a business, we as human beings or business owners, we react a lot towards what we think is unfair. And people think it's unfair if I'm going to pay my taxes, but the others, they're not paying. So they want the agency to do something about it. So we focused more on that. And of course, if you know that if I'm one of those who are non-compliant, that the tax agency will do something. But the assumption is that people want to do their fair share, and we do something for the taxpayers, and especially when it comes to different lines of business and sort of. So it was a change in communication and sort of, and the taxpayers, they thought that, okay, this feels better. I understand that I have to be compliant, but it's okay if you make sure that others will be compliant. Okay. So that's the short version.
You're right. Now, just related to that, so like what we witnessed and what most revenue administrations will actually attest to is people will always say, why are we paying taxes? So they need to see some kind of benefit, direct benefit in terms of maybe provision of public goods, that kind of thing. So is it something you mentioned, like in Sweden, they are talking about why are not others paying and I'm paying? But now something can also that is very relevant in this part of the world is like, what is the government doing with these monies that we are paying? So is it something that you also experience?
Yes, I mean, when it comes to paying taxes, people will of course want to know, why should I pay taxes? Yes, and that could be different reasons. I mean, as you said, in Sweden, people think that if I pay my taxes, I want welfare now for this. But the motivation can vary. It mustn't be that. I know that in South Africa, maybe we have some colleagues from South Africa, they had like the payoff for a better South Africa. And then you pay taxes more as an investment for a better future. So you pay taxes for something to everyone perhaps see in certain tax context that it's not working the best, but paying taxes will help develop into a situation for coming generation for a better future. And that could also be a motivator. I think that something is going to be better in the future, even if it's not working perfect now. So it can differ in different contexts, the motive, why you pay taxes.
So just going back to the fear,
yes,
in a very clear contextual form, maybe you could just highlight maybe some 3 key transformations that led to having STA being respected than being feared. Any lessons that we can learn from?
Yes, I will think that listening to taxpayer is one lesson that we have learned. That every time we think that we know what taxpayers need, we're wrong. So just to listen for sure, it's a takeaway that we think it's so important. I know that the IRS in the US, they talk about the blind assumption theory, that you just think you know and you take actions towards that. I think to listen for real, to see what taxpayers struggle with is something that has helped us a lot, and helped us look ourselves in the mirror. It helps us to change ourselves. So that is one very, very important takeaway. And also to involve staff in this change or the transformation has been crucial. So the staff will also ask why are we going to change? Is it something wrong what we have done in the past or we're doing now? What is wrong with that, especially when it comes to enforcement? Some say that if I do an audit and I will like raise 1 million Swedish crown, isn't that good that we, I mean, get this money for the government? And we've had some discussions about that. And we say that, of course, we want the tax system to work as smooth as possible. But let's say that we can identify these situations earlier on. So the taxpayers perhaps can do it more right from the start instead of us coming a few years later raising money. That is a better result as we see it. We can get the taxpayer right on track. And having discussions with our staff, answering the question why are we going to change, and that we have staff and managers within the organization that takes this discussion has also been one very, very important takeaway. And the third takeaway I want to highlight is to really carry out your business in another way. It's not enough that you talk about you have a different approach and then you do business as usual. You have to change what you're doing, and change, no matter what kind of change it is, it hurts a little bit. We were safe doing the same things that we did last year, but if you're going to do something else in another manners, that is always something that you don't really know how it's going to end up. And that is, of course, something that happens in our organization as well. But you have to, communicate in another way, use your enforcement resources in another way, cooperation more in another way, sort of. So it's not that the fine words is not enough. You have to do what you're supposed to do in another way also. So there are three lessons learned or key insight that I want to highlight. There are, of course, others also, but these have been very, very important for us in the transformation.
Oh, so one of the last one you really touched on change management. So yes. you really need to actually explain to the taxpayers why you are maybe coming from a comfort zone to something that maybe will be for their betterment. That one is very, very true. Now, now we go back to what you had actually highlighted in your last presentation. This is in relation to supporting voluntary compliance. This one happens from my experience in TADAT, assessments. You'll find that many tax administrations have heavily invested in supporting voluntary compliance, and whereby it can be attested to having such things like effective channels of communication, feedback mechanism, use of social media, automated telephone exchange systems, etc. You can name them. But if you look further, because TADAT itself looks at the wholesome, tax administration. So you have now these other 4 pillars of compliance. So that is now registration, filing, payment, and reporting, accurate reporting. So you will see that as much as tax authorities have invested, or agencies or services have invested in supporting voluntary compliance, much is not translated into now promoting these 4 pillars of compliance. So you'll find they have issues to do with the register, they have issues to do with filing, they have issues to do with even taxpayers accurately reporting what they are supposed to report to their true reflections of their trading activities. So where is the disconnect? Just in a nutshell, from your own experience, have you
Yes, I
ever
would
faced such
say
a thing?
that in order to get it going, you have to consider it all. I mean, it's like a chain. It's not stronger than the weakest link, so to say. So just to give you examples, what we have done, if we have developed in the Swedish tax agency an e-service, and the taxpayers still has to, extract something from his or her business system, typing it in to in an e-service for us, that is something that could, you know, take time for the business owner, not smooth enough compared to when you filed on paper. So we had this situation many years ago now where we were criticized because the businesses said that, well, I have everything here, and now you want me to sit and fill it all in an e-service. And when we didn't realize it from the business owner's perspective, we developed the wrong solutions. So if we end up with that, then it's of course natural that the businesses would prefer to do it another way. So you have to understand it from the business side. You have to look at the data quality. You have to look at how it's handled within the tax agency. You have to consider it all. So if one part is not working here, I think you will see consequences. But what we won't do is to put all the burdens on the shoulders of the taxpayers, which we did in the past. The result of that was that the taxpayers thought that this is so complicated, so I have to, get assistance from someone in order to be compliant, and they paid someone to help them be compliant. That is not the case in our environment now. We have relationship directly more or less with every taxpayers, even if we have tax consultants and so on, but just for filing, and especially when it comes to private individuals, it's more easier now, so most of them can do it themselves. But to really take this outside perspective and look at all the different moments that is affected when it comes to this, I will say from my experience, you have to do. And so if you have like a silo thinking and you only look at the e-service and you do not consider what it is in the business perspective, then you perhaps will fail, or you won't see this development that we all want to see. And I can carry on this if you like. When we see that it works, I would say it's a win-win situation, because if it works in the businesses, if the business owner has what they want to have in order to be compliant, we will see at the tax agency that there are less non-compliance, there are less unintentional errors. It's smooth, it's running, so to say. But if it's very, very hard for the taxpayers to understand and be compliant, we try to inform it. We see lots of mistakes. The taxpayers are angry. They are frustrated because it's difficult. And we have piles of work within the tax agency, and the taxpayers, they say, this is horrible because I don't know, I don't understand how to do it right. So they're communicating these kind of areas in a way that you will end up in a win-win situation if the easiest way for the taxpayer is to be compliant, and we can influence that.
So you rightly said, I can pick out something very clearly from what you just said. It's like the TAs are supposed to think like the taxpayer. They're supposed to put themselves in the taxpayer's shoes.
Yes, so, exactly so.
Yeah, so that they can have they can have maybe their programs or initiatives very well communicated, and at the end of the day, taxpayers can easily now comply and pay taxes and maybe get better services from the government.
Yeah, exactly so. Otherwise, we're doomed to fail, actually, because we have lots of experience when it comes to run business within the tax agencies. I know that you have many, many years for the KRA, the Kenyan Revenue Agency, and lots of experience there. And the culture that could be in a tax administration. You see when people have filed and you look at all the information, the cases and so on. But in order to really understand what you want, what you have to prioritize as a tax agency, you have to as you said, see the world more from the taxpayer's perspective, in the taxpayer's shoes. Like, what is it to be in the construction business, for example? How does it work? How do you business? What aid do we need to support from the tax agency in order to strive for more compliance environment? Can we cooperate perhaps with some agencies and some other organizations in order to get it going? That is something that we have done in Sweden, which has been very, very fruitful. We have learned a lot, and we see that we join with other agencies, other organizations in order to get it more pro-compliant and easier for taxpayers to run their business.
That is very good. Like now, if you come to the TADAT methodology, we are developing the linkages between the 9 performance outcome areas, whereby actually we are seeing results. We are seeing them as you do these assessments. You will see that if whatever that you've done, like for example, if you don't have a register, an automated register, a high integrity register, and then of course that one will impact very heavily on filing and payment, because then it always says that now if you have a good register, automated, taxpayers are registering at their comfort of maybe their homes, their offices, or wherever they are on their mobile devices. Then they can still do it, file now the returns based now on the information that has been fed. So you'll find that the register in itself is related to filing, POA4 and POA5, now the payment side, and even voluntary tax compliance. So if the register is not current, let's say, it's not current, it's not adequate, and then even if you are communicating to the taxpayers, voluntary tax compliance, you don't know even your taxpayers. You don't know the extent where your taxpayers reach, where they end, where they start. So you need to have a good register for you now to know whom are you communicating to. So we are kind of like developing linkages that actually are informing us a lot. As you do the assessments, you just see these things happening. I don't know if you have any comment on this.
Well, I know that the conditions vary around the world, and we have, I would say that we have like a good track of taxpayer when it comes to that kind of information that you describe. And actually you will get a personal identification number when you're born in Sweden, and this number is used for all purposes in the society. So could be like taxes, but also when it comes to other services, and even services when it comes to the private sector, everyone uses that number. So the quality of that is of course a good base for us. And it's the same when it comes to companies. If they're registered, that is not the real challenge for us. But if I'm totally with you that if you do not have quality when it comes to this, if you don't have quality when it comes to whom you're talking to, that is so important to get everything else going. And also when it comes to taxpayer rights of pension and benefits and so on in society, to really focus on a good quality, data quality when it comes to that, I would say is crucial in order to get everything else going. But I know that systems vary, and the more international we become, it's more challenging, of course. But if you want to prioritize something and you see that you have very, very poor data quality, knowing who the taxpayers are, I think that is a good start to see how can you, focus on that and increase the quality perhaps.
Okay.
Do you agree, Des? Do you agree?
I agree. I agree. Especially the point you mentioned that like in Sweden, the registration starts right at birth. So yes, the tax agency it's in some way connected to the registrar of maybe birth and death. So the number you get when you are born, it's now like your tax registration number, that kind of thing. So that one, I agree with you. That one can remove in so many loopholes and can in itself clean the register just automatically. Okay, so that one I really agree with you. Now, now on another different thinking altogether, something else. Could one argue that the level that STA has reached is related to the whole government approach to service delivery, more so about the strides achieved in economic growth and development? Something about that, if you could just shed some light. Really,
I will say that you're on something here. The whole of government approach is a good thing, but especially, shifting perspective from our perspective, being an agency, to seeing it more from the taxpayer's point of view, where you have all the agencies, of course, the whole of government, but also other important stakeholders. So it's more than the whole of government approach. I think that nowadays, when we use technology in a wise way, you have software providers, you have other organizations of taxpayers. That's also very important, the taxpayer itself. So I would say that the whole of government approach is not enough if you want to succeed, because we don't have government software and so sort of like that. So we have to understand from the taxpayer's point of view, it's not easy to know what are the things the tax agency is handling and what are these other agencies handling. And when they ask us questions, they sometimes don't really know who's responsible. And in that situation, it's good that we realize it from taxpayers' point of view, and we can join together. For example, if you're going to get a driver's license in Sweden, we have some different agencies responsible. But from the citizen just wanted the driver's license, then don't really care about these all agencies. So they're joined together. And it's the same in Sweden. If you're going to start a company, we are some other governments responsible for this, but we have joined together, trying to see it from those who wants to start a company. They want to consider, should I start a company? That is the situation many, not that you have started, then the train has left, so to speak. So you consider it and you want to know, should I do this or not? And then we have joined with information and stuff in order to assist the taxpayer in this situation. So we going more towards this understanding taxpayers' situations and how we can join with different stakeholders, government and perhaps non-government organization, in order to make it easier for the taxpayers to handle these situations. So that is the approach, as I see.
Oh, so you rightfully mentioned that it's not just enough for the whole government approach. That one I agree.
No, exactly.
So yeah, in Sweden, do you have situations, because tax administrations always face this other dilemma. Like they are technical in nature, but there is also the political side. That's the government. So the government has its own goals to achieve. The tax agency, which now acts on the facts on the ground, is driving maybe in another direction. So we might have some conflicts in the sense that I just give you an example. Like the tax administration can be achieving the targets that are set by the government. All the time they are just achieving the targets. And then now the government says this is now we gave them very easy targets. Maybe we should raise them. So they raise the targets within the financial year. I don't know if such thing happens in Sweden. Does it?
Well, if I understand you right, Des, the governments want you to go after more money during the fiscal year. Yes,
Yeah.
but that is something that is not a good aim, actually. I would say, because if you're going for this right from the start approach,
Yeah.
you want to focus the most on giving the best conditions in order to get it right from the start. And if
Yeah.
you're going to get as much revenue as possible after like audit activities,
Yeah.
each taxpayer that are compliant from the start lowers the possibility to achieve that. So, I
Oh,
mean, you have to set goals in a long-term perspective in order to get the whole of compliance working. So, so if you can contribute to the economic growth, business can carry out its business, and you could have perhaps lower the tax gap a little bit, but get it more right from the start through technology, digitalization, and so on. That must be considered the best result, not when we find as much errors as possible. So let me give you just an example. I
yes.
mean, if you have like police out in the street and you see that some are going too fast, if
Yeah.
you catch like 100 car drivers, would the police say this was a good result? Or would
Yeah.
they say that this was a bad result? We hope that the car drivers could perhaps keep to the speed
Yeah.
limit. And
Yeah.
that is the essence here. If we want to get it right from the start, we focus as much as possible on that. We don't want to, have this behavior as tax administration hunting the taxpayers in order to get as much money after audit activities. So therefore, the discussion, this approach, giving conditions to get it right from the start, you
Yeah.
also have to consider what is really the good result here and
Yeah.
how can you, manage tax agencies in a way that really contributes to this. So I know that this is sensitive
Yeah.
topic could be, but
Yeah.
I hope you understand what I mean.
I
That
mean, I
past
know.
we really went after the taxpayers, but now we try our best to use technology to get it more right from the start, and well, we consider that a better result.
I agree with you that we should strive to improve the processes, the way we serve our taxpayers, to give them an enabling environment for them to comply, rather than chasing the revenue. That one can give us, like, if we improve our infrastructural capacity in revenue administration, then the results will just start coming in, rather than just targeting the revenue side, the targets, and that, the numbers. That one, I really agree with you. Now,
Yes,
just
and also
something.
to yes,
Yeah.
just to add there, this that maybe something that okay, this guy from Sweden, he's up in the blue, don't see the non-compliance part.
Yeah.
Course, we react when we see like tax crime and so on,
Yeah.
but as much as possible, we want to, handle it as early as possible before we have lots of non-compliance. So if we can be very early to hinder this, instead of let it all grow and you will get a lot of money afterwards, it's better to handle it earlier, and that will be perhaps like less money. So I say that we're not, we're focusing on the non-compliance part, tax fraud and so on, of course, also,
Oh,
just to
yeah.
be clear.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Then there is how did you deal with internal resistance when on your transformational journey? Maybe from the STA itself, does it deal with that? Or you didn't
Yes.
have any internal resistance?
Yes, we had the internal resistance, of course. And as we talked about earlier, I think that every change you'll face that. And as I said, the staff, they want to know why. So
Yeah.
therefore, we involved them in the discussion about why we are doing this. So they were part of this, which was very, very crucial. And also those who held these discussions with the staff and the managers were people working within the agency. So let's say that we did a study, which often is an external part that helps us with knowledge. taxpayer situation and so on. But let's say that these representatives talk to our staff and say, you know, you should have like more better taxpayer treatment, for example. We think that our staff will say, okay, these guys, they don't know anything about, you know, audits and stuff. So we think that they won't listen to that. So therefore, it's crucial to get the knowledge, but have the conversation internal in the organization. We have to be like bearers of this, and the staff has to be part of it, and it goes into our DNA, so to speak. So this has been very, very important. So everyone who's going to change, no matter what change, will face some resistance. And you have to be prepared. You have to have managers and others that are willing to take this discussion for real. And you will get people on board that think that this is a good thing to do if they understand. And you will have some that resist, of course.
Now just going back to something we had discussed earlier, but now in a broader sense, in terms of the lessons learned, we could say that some revenue authorities in Africa or services are actually moving away from over-reliance on enforcement, as you rightly put it, and focusing more or less on taxpayer facilitation, creating an enabling environment for taxpayers to thrive and do business, so that now taxes will just come in, or revenue will just come in automatically. So what insights could we learn from STA? What are maybe some of the pitfalls that maybe you faced along the way? And how did you overcome them?
Well, I would say that, I mean, each context is different, of course. I mean, the transformation that we have done, I don't think is a good idea to take just the Swedish thing and trying to do that. That is not working. I'm sure that all you colleagues in the African context, you know much better than I do and my Swedish colleagues about how things is working in Africa. And but what you can do is really to understand taxpayer situation in the African context, in your context. And by listening, bringing in that kind of knowledge into your administration to see what can you prioritize in order to get it going better. So that is something that I think is something to learn, that we all can learn from. And when it comes to like pitfalls, I would say that there are some things that I and maybe my colleague Lennart, who wrote the book together with me, regret, and that is that sometimes when we get like new knowledge and you just throw it out in the organization, there is a risk that some people who are responsible for this will feel that it becomes like a blame game. Maybe it was you responsible for this, Des, and we say that, oh no, we were planning to do this, but we were a bit stressed for time and so on. So you become in this like defense position. And then the organization will be afraid of new knowledge, which is not good. So therefore, what we did was, when we collected new knowledge, we said that what we could have done, that is not fruitful to discuss that. Let us sit together now and see what can we do based on these insights looking forward. And that was better, I realize, because when you get this, blame game thing, it stucks. So it's hard, and people get afraid within the organization. So that is a pitfall that I would say that we just realized it. So, and it takes time, as I said, change takes time. That is also even if I say that there are some possibilities to do it faster in some context, you can, really focus on a good taxpayer relation, and you can facilitate it in different ways. You have to realize that a long-term culture shift, it takes some time. So you have to be patient, and you will see results much later on. It's not within the fiscal year. So.
Oh, okay. That's very good. Now there are two things I want us maybe just to talk about. Maybe you can shed some light on it. They are very key to running or administering revenue services or authority, however you call it. So the first one is the register itself, what we talked about earlier. We just want you to give us maybe your experience, the integrity of the taxpayers register, which is anchored now to the four pillars. It is actually the foundation of any tax administration, the register itself. So how did STA manage to cleanse the tax register? Because in the growth of any tax administration itself, there must be some way of cleaning a register. Maybe from where you came from, maybe the manual systems, and maybe now the automated systems. So, and how, after cleaning the register, if I think you went through that cycle, how did it relate to revenue mobilization? What lessons were learned from the whole exercises, the whole exercise? And as rightfully as you said, you can come up with solutions like you want to automate everything, but that would not be the right maybe thing for all the taxpayers. Some taxpayers will always say they want to do their own thing the way they know, they just want to fill the form manually, you understand? So some revenue services, they have a hybrid. They have manual systems and the automated systems. I don't know how you strike a balance between that kind of thing. That is something I just wanted to shed some light on.
Yes, thank you, Des. Let me start with the use of digitalization. And you said that you have manual process and digital processes. We have that. And I think that we must understand that not all taxpayers prefer digital solutions. So our strategic aim is to use technology in a way that really benefits taxpayers. So instead of forcing taxpayers into digital solutions, we try to involve them when we develop solutions so they feel that this is good for me, for real. And I think that that is very, very good for us, because the payoff sort of is when taxpayers prefer these solutions. But if we make them like mandatory, maybe they're not that good. Taxpayers struggle with it, but they will feel like you're forced into it, and you will perhaps do it, but not that smooth. So the use of digitalization and technology, in our opinion, we think is better to try to really use the benefits. And if some taxpayers do not prefer this, we can use digital solutions in a way that you don't have to be like a tech guy in order to use it. For example, if you look at television, that is technology, but you don't think about it. You say, I'm just watching the telly here, and that's what I do. And by us developing together with other solutions that is more or less intuitive, that is very easy for taxpayers to understand, there's logic from their point of view, we think that we can include more taxpayers in using them. And we see that how can we provide benefits for real. So if it's a business owner, is the information accurate? Does it come in the right time, the right context for the business owner, or is it like a half year too late, for example? Can we do something about it? Then the other thing that you touched upon is more like integrity and data quality and so on. And I think that it's very, very important for us as tax administration to really respect that every information we get from taxpayers, we have to handle really, really respectfully. So if the taxpayers feel like we're abusing their personal integrity in a sort of way, that will have effects on the compliance, the relation. If they feel like, for example, the Swedish tax agency that do not handle their information with care, maybe they will be afraid to ask us. So they can't really know how to be compliant because they're afraid of us using this information. So therefore, we say that you can contact us, you can be anonymous, and you should feel that there are mechanisms in the tax agency that really concern the privacy part of taxpayers' information. So keeping registers in track, and a good quality there is not only a good quality for us handling our business, it's also something that affects the relation between the taxpayers and us. And sometimes could be enough that we know that the information is in the taxpayer's environment. For example, all the business transactions. We don't have to bring it all into the tax agency in order to see that it's compliant, because that could be considered like mass surveillance that could have like negative effects on the taxpayer's relation. We should never, take in more information that we actually need. So that is also very important when it comes to this area, I would say. So it's not the more the merrier, it's the right. Yeah. It's the right.
Okay. Thanks so much. Now, just a quick one. Now, on the issue of risk management, you understand and appreciate. Without really going into I know risk is very complicated. Risk as a term in itself or an area of even study, but it is the catchphrase for running any kind of a business. Be it the revenue administration, be it any other kind of business. So in a broad sense, how has STA managed risk? Keeping in mind, I don't really want you to go into the technical details, just risk to revenue in regards to compliance risks and institutional risks. And then marrying it down to now what we talked about, the manual or the traditional economy transforming into the digital economy. We have some risks associated like these people who just make payments online. You understand, where they are not even within the purview or the space of the STA. How do you manage these kind of risks? Just a broad view, both bank risks and institutional risks, given now the stages in the economic growth.
Yes, that is of course not easy to answer exactly, but what we are doing now differently compared to what we did in the past, that we use this risk analysis thinking broader than just connected to enforcement activities. In the back in the days, we used like risk analysis to find these, non-compliance areas, for example. But now we use risk analysis in order to see what is not working more broader, and that could be a range of activities that could be the solution. It depends on why we have these risks, and it could be like in-house risks, of course, when it comes to is it caring for integrity for taxpayers. It's is our digital structure structured in a way that sensitive information is just handled by few co-workers, or is it like broad? Are we doing that? Could be a risk as well. And when it comes to compliance risks, that we often do have a view of treatment that is broader. It could be a combination of activities, could be information, cooperation, enforcement, like a package of outcome when it comes to the risks we see. And also that we want to keep it on a higher level, so we don't think that the taxpayers are the risks.
Yeah,
that they're not the risks. I mean, human behavior is according to what's around us. So let's say that we have like 10,000 taxpayers from Kenya moving to Sweden. They will adopt to the system, as we think that you will see how others compliant, what's the possibilities to be compliant, etc. And maybe there will be some differences for taxpayers in different systems. So we don't want to see the taxpayer as such as a risk. It's more a risk of areas and behavior on an overall level. And we have to understand this and perhaps contribute to do or influence the structure or the environment around the taxpayers in order to reduce the risks. So we use this risk thinking, but it's much broader nowadays compared to how we used it in the past.
Just a bit of the risk, just a small expansion of the risk area. Have you, in your experience in STA, done any studies, maybe to gauge taxpayers' behavior, like in terms of like why these taxpayers, this cluster of taxpayers or group of taxpayers, they don't pay taxes, they don't want to comply.
Yes.
They behave in a certain way, given now some conditions from the
Yes.
STA. Have you ever done
Yes,
that?
we have done studies, but it's usually like a smaller area. For example, when it comes to declare capital gains, if you have sold shares and so on, we could
Yes,
see that many taxpayers, they just don't understand how to do it right because it's so hard. And when we realize that that is for many taxpayers the reason for non-compliance, then of course enforcement is not the right way to go. It's more that we have to first see that everyone is able to be compliant, that we sort it out, in a way that the possibilities are there. Because if you declare you try your best and you thought that, well, I did my best, and then the tax agency, they say, okay, you did wrong here, Des. You've been non-compliant. And you will say to us at the Swedish tax agency, I tried to look at your website and I tried to reach you, but that was not possible. And this is what I've done. And I just end up this, and I tried my best. That will get people angry. So if we realize that non-compliance due to these kind of things, we have to do our homework. We have to, make it easier to be compliant. And then we do enforcement activity as well. But giving everyone a fair chance to be compliant, that is the first step. And also that makes enforcement legitimate when we use it. So that's the short answer.
Thank you. Just we move now to the questions from the audience. Someone has asked, have there been gender considerations in designing the systems to make it more friendly? Like when you design your systems, did you bring in the gender equation?
Well, actually, what it was that we tried to think of what is really good result for us. And we realized, as I said at the beginning, that we want to get it more right from the start. And then we try to see what can contribute, what can we do in order to get it right from the start. And we had discussion with our management team, and that everyone thought that this is a really good idea. So when it comes to agenda setting, that was kind of natural that we have to listen to taxpayers, put it on the agenda, and so on. But we also involved the Ministry of Finance in order to hear their view, because if you have like a ministry that has a totally different view, then perhaps this won't work. And we described this thinking about getting it right from the start, and they said that, okay, it makes sense. I mean, that seems like a good approach. But if you don't have like these kind of stakeholders on board, that could ruin these good initiatives. So for us, that was the easy part, the agenda setting. But then all the transformation, get it going, backlashes, everything. You have to read the books, and those who are interested.
Just one last question from the audience. Sure. What are the costs and human resources changes when a country wishes to change from this fear-based cooperation to, I think maybe, I think what he or she meant is now the friendly cooperation.
Well, it's very tough.
This is from
it's very tough. We haven't measured actually in that sense because it has been a part of our ordinary business. So we have not like measured exactly. But what we can see from our studies, when we can really make it easy for taxpayers to do it right, as I said, then we see that it also becomes more right. It's a higher level. So it's like a win-win situation. Getting a good tax paid treatment or focusing on a good tax paid treatment has resulted, I would say, in a higher level of trust for the institution. We know that trust levels are important for the willingness to comply, but also the possibilities for taxpayers to use their rights. So we see good results in this kind of measures, but to see what it costs the whole of the thing, I don't really know. But I'm sure that it's a better situation for taxpayers now, according to the studies, than it was in the past, where the taxpayers struggled, lots of costs for the taxpayers also.
Okay. That is just before we go back to Annette, I think our time is up.
Yes, it's up.
Parting shot, one last parting shot, just to the tax community who are in the audience. From you, one last parting shot.
Oh, what? Okay, I must just to wrap it up. I just love this kind of discussion with tax colleagues. I can't see you now when you're on screen or listening, but I think that we have much to learn from each other. Now I share some takeaways from the Swedish tax agency, the transformation, but I think we face more or less the same challenges all over the tax world, so to speak. So therefore, I think it's a good initiative of IMF into that. And it was so nice to interact with you, Des. And I really look forward to more of this. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for having me in this podcast.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Annette.
Thank you so much, Des. Anders, just wonderful. The time flew by so quickly. I wanted to share with our audience, we have people listening in from Kenya, from Zimbabwe, from Bangladesh, from Ethiopia, and I apologize if I missed anyone, but thank you so much. The chat was very active today. We had wonderful questions. We've noted down questions that we didn't get to today, and we'll pose them to Anders at some future event. Always a pleasure to have you, Des. Thank you so much for your insightful questions and for finishing promptly on time. It's no easy feat. Thank you very much. To our audiences, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We invite you to view Anders's presentation from May 11th, where he presents more in depth about his recent book that was published. And we provide the link to get your own copy as well here in the YouTube channel. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time.
We do. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.